Hey everybody, as you probably know, we are in the midst of a global pandemic of COVID-19. All touring for this foreseeable future has completely stopped. And if you'd like to help out the touring crew that had lost out on a lot of work, please visit show-logistics.com, and we're going to be donating all of the profits from the merch sold on the first page directly to Crew Nation, which is going to help touring industry professionals that need to get through the next couple months until we're back on the road again. And anything you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much. Hey everybody, welcome to Bus Call, the podcast dedicated to the touring industry professionals and their stories. My name is Ryan Goldbacher and I'm going to be your host. In these interviews, we're going to break down how touring professionals got into the industry, advice they have for up-and-comers, and awesome stories from the road. For more info, visit us at show-logistics.com and click on the Bus Call podcast at the top of the page. Ben Mench is an agent over at APA in Nashville. He works with Angels and Airwaves, Chaos, Emery, Plain White Tees, Mystery Science Theater 3000 Live, which is awesome. I loved watching Mystery Science Theater. And we both work for Sebastian Bach. Ben Mench, welcome to Bus Call. How's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Thank you for having me. That's basically everybody I work with. Hawthorne Heights, I think, was also in that list. I'm honestly blessed to work with so many great bands and shows, not just bands, but, theatrical stuff. You mentioned Mystery Science Theater 3000, which is obviously a 180 from Sebastian Bach.
I don't know, man. That's his kind of thing. I'm sure he watched that.
Yeah.
He's a nerd like that.
But also I do another show called Secret Walls, which is basically, in a nutshell, live 90-minute street art battles done, two artists, two teams versus each other, black paint only, white walls, and crowd decides who wins. So part of being an agent and just having a passionate love for the arts as a whole, and to keep myself fresh and to keep my love and passion in what I do, I try to find things that are, a little outside the box. It just makes the job a little more fun because it's new deals to cut. You're dealing with different personalities. You're dealing with different rooms, new promoters.
That kind of leads me into what I'm going to talk about. Obviously we communicate a lot, but I have, honestly, except in a general sense, I don't have too much of an idea of how it starts for an agent. Everybody wants to, get in the music business to be a rock star. But what's the story for you becoming an agent?
Yeah, so I will preface this whole story with I never wanted to be an agent, and I started playing in bands. That's how I got into booking bands. So back in middle school, I was in a band with my older brother, and we were in like a punk metal band. Being a middle child, I always felt like I had a managerial role in life. Sort of fell on my shoulders in this band. When we needed shows, I started emailing people and sort of figuring out how to get my band to play this VFW hall or this youth club or whatever it was. That went on for a couple years. I started this little productions. I called it Hyphen Productions because my last name's hyphenated. And I was just like booking our band. And after I split from that band after a few years, I started this Hyphen Productions thing. I was working with the local radio station to put on little battle of the bands, and I'm in high school at this point. I still don't really have any idea what I'm doing. I don't understand the concept of deals. I don't understand the concept of folds or really anything. I'm just trying to feel my way through this. I grew up in Vermont, as you can imagine. There wasn't a massive music scene like you would find in New York or Boston or LA or whatever. So from there, I ended up joining up with another Vermont band. I got accepted to Berklee College of Music, so now I'm right around 18 years old. I was also working at an audio company, so I was actually doing live sound and mixing for local bands.
I had no idea you did that.
That's why I know how to talk some tech stuff with you guys. That's the world I grew up in. So I actually worked there for 4 or 5 years. Actually, before I left for college, the owner of that company offered me a full-time gig with better pay and all that stuff in exchange for me to not go to college. It was kind of funny. I think my mom would have disowned me if I didn't go to college. So I went to Berklee. I was still playing in this punk rock band. I was still sort of booking some bands here and there on the side, but I really wasn't all in yet. And I actually, at Berklee, I tried to get into the music production and engineering program. In my mind at that time, I wanted to twist knobs and push faders in the studio all day. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Funny thing about it was I got denied from a major twice, 2 years in a row, because it's like a super difficult process to get accepted in that program at Berklee. So after I got denied the second time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to say screw this thing. I'm going to try my hand at the business side. I already have like a general understanding of the music business. I don't really know what I would want to do. Like everybody always says they want to go into A&R or whatever. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool, whatever. I'll apply and I'm pretty sure I'll get in. So I applied. I actually got in music business with a focus in management. It was like you could have music business with a focus in legal, in management, or in... God, I can't remember what the other one was, but there's three of them. Anyway, so I was on like the music business management track. I stopped playing in this punk rock band, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to sort of take this booking thing that I started back in high school. I'm going to see what I can do with it. So I took this little company, Hyper Productions, that I started in high school. I was like, I'm going to bring back this name. I'm going to see if I can do something, like book some bands, maybe manage some bands, and really sort of get like a general understanding of the sort of grassroots, bottoms, as low as you can go, and I'm going to figure out how to work my way up, because Berklee was teaching you, like, I would have classes and they'd be like, all right, so build this tour budget for this band and you're going to play 20 arenas and generally you make $250,000 a night. Build a tour budget on that. And it's like, motherfucker, we're going to get out of this program and no one is going to be doing that.
Yeah,
Let's start at the bottom. And so I saw the only way I was going to figure out how to learn that stuff is for me to just go out and do it. So Hyphen Productions, I was booking bands, I was managing bands. I started getting a couple other kids around Berklee from like my music business classes. I was like, hey, do you want to like book some bands with me, or do you have any interest in managing bands? And that's actually how I met my wife, Kristen. I met her at a party. She was doing business, and I sort of was like, hey, I got this like company. Like, do you want to like help me out on some stuff? And she was like, okay. I had a van and trailer from when I was touring this punk band, so I also became like an Uber for these Berklee bands, like totally illegally, by the way. I had like not enough insurance in the world. Berklee's one of the most diverse schools in the country. Nobody has their license, but they all are musicians, so they all need to get to gigs. So I was charging these kids like $40 to take them from their dorm to these different venues around Boston, and then I would take them out for like little 2-3 day tours or whatever. And in doing that, I was meeting all the promoter reps and the door guys and learning all the venues in sort of like the New England area just from driving all these bands around the shows. So I started like building up a really nice Rolodex and started to make a little name for myself. I lived in South Boston, not to be confused with South Sea. South Sea is where all the Irish mob Whitey Bulger people are. I lived in South Boston, which is like super duper ghetto. Uh-huh. But I became friends with everybody on my block. And through that, I built myself a little security team. And so I would rent those guys out for house parties. So I was making like $300 a weekend to rent out like these three big dudes that like lived on my corner. And I'd charge them $75 each and pocket a couple bucks for myself. It was just like a really crazy, fun time. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was trying to do everything.
I'm totally on board with you on that kind of stuff. I mean, I went to school too. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was worthless, but it's just a little unrealistic. It's like you said, you're like 20 years old doing budgets for, arenas, and nobody is going to start you out in that position. Mm-hmm. The best education that I see out there is what I call the punk rock education. I know so many guys out there. I just did an interview with my buddy Thomas O'Keefe. He's a tour manager for Weezer right now, and he tour managed Train for years and stuff like that. And he started out just playing in a band, and then he was the one that figured out how long the drive was going to be to the next gig, booked the hotel rooms. And one day, that band says, hey, do you want to be the tour manager? And it just kind of grows from there. And he, it's a very, very grassroots type of education. And to be honest with you, that's the best way to go, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to an education at all, but, the school I went to was one of the most expensive in the world, and they had the most impressive equipment in the world. And I have never, ever been to a studio in Nashville that operated like that. It's just, right. It was, and it's all impressive stuff, but it's just not reality. And, the bottom up way, I think, is the best way to learn how to do this. That's how I learned how to be a tour manager.
Exactly. And this industry is built on contacts. Berklee's an impressive name, but It also, people see Berkeley and they think egotistical prick.
Well,
and they're right. A lot of people are right in a lot of scenarios.
Absolutely, I agree with that. But there's still plenty of people that come out of there that really do know what they're doing, and it's a shame, or that really want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame because it's absolutely true that so many people come out of those schools, and I can think of a few off the top of my head. A couple of them are in Nashville. They just kind of think they know everything, and it's a little bit dangerous to come out like that. So.
Yeah. Yep. So hyphen turned into like a thing through my junior year, and then I got accepted to do our London internship program, and I was. It's funny, this is the last year that ended up doing our London program because of a bunch of stuff that happened, but I was the one and only student that got accepted by the agency group in London at the time to intern over there, which was super cool because I got to hang out with Neil Warnock and Tom Tapp and Ross Warnock and Anna Brewers. And I mean, there was Becky Sudgren. There's so many great agents that came out of that office before UTA took over agency group and some of those people split. But it was just such a cool experience to sort of see how things were done sort of across the pond and sort of get that viewing of how they do it over there. And it was a blast. I mean, I was there for 3 months. Funny enough, Kristen, my wife, did the same program. She worked for a label over there. So came back, finished up my credits at Berkeley. At this point, I'm still booking bands. I'm managing a couple bands. Shout out to Lance Tobin, who ran this thing together. Lance is now the buyer at Irving Plaza in New York City, but out of Berkeley, he went over to Crossroads, and he took Brighton Music Hall and just gave it a 180 facelift and made that just an incredibly successful club over the past number of years. And then from Brighton, he took over Paradise, and now he's in New York City at Irving. So I was also working a dead-end job at like an indoor trampoline park after I finished up all my credits. To make some cash because I wasn't making nearly enough money, a couple of bucks here and there. I went in one day and they're like, we want to make you a manager. And I went home and I was like, there's no way I would be able to live with myself if I spent all this time into trying to make music happen and I instead end up at an indoor trampoline park. Uh-huh. So at night, I sent a note to the CFO in London, who I became friends with at the agency group. I was like, hey, I need to get out of Boston. Does the agency group have anything in any of the other offices? I know London's a long shot, but like LA, even New York, whatever. And he's back the next day. He's like, there's an LA internship available. Do you want me to connect you with them? Sure. Yeah, this is with the agency group before UTA took them over. So I got on the phone with him. I was like, hey, do you have anything available? I said, I have an internship position available. How soon can you be here? And I said, when do you want me there? He's like, if you can be here in 2 weeks, that would be great. I said, I'll see you in 2 weeks. I hung up the phone. I walked into my job, quit, or gave my 2 week notice, bought a plane ticket, packed one bag, and flew to LA. And I slept on floors. Shout out to my friend Stacey Heath, who was out there trying to make it. And I slept on her floor. Actually, my first night in LA, I had no air mattress, no nothing. I literally just took my clothes out and just spread them on the floor and just slept on my couch for a few nights. My internship, I think, was only supposed to be like 2 days a week. I was there 5 days a week, 9 to 5, or whatever the hours were, and just trying to do whatever I could to get an assistant gig, because these are all they're unpaid internships, right? In London, you got a per diem, you got like a $10. They give you $10 for lunch every day you work there or intern there. But LA, there wasn't anything. And that's like the theme of the music industry is work a lot and don't get paid.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I feel like those internships put your standards in place. The last day of that internship, like I was not legally in the state of California, not able to intern at agency group any longer. Last day, I got an interview at APA. The woman who I was writing with was the assistant to this guy, Craig Newman. And she was like, he's already interviewed a bunch of people, but he likes your resume. Why don't you come in can you come in today? Sure. And at the agency group, it's band t-shirts and shorts. I'm in pants, chucks, and a band t-shirt. So I run to an H&M. I grab a button-up shirt. I go to APA. I have my interview. My last name being Mench. And growing up in Vermont and not knowing what a Mench is, and then moving to LA and having everybody be like, oh, you're a Mench, and then understanding what that actually means. I'm 99% sure that's the reason why Craig Newman actually hired me as his assistant at APA.
What is a Mench?
A mensch is a good person. It can mean Superman. It's just an honorable person, which is a really good fucking last name to have.
Yeah, man, that's
like
I didn't know that.
You're a good person. So got hired as an assistant APA, and then I just put in the time and really sort of buckled down but really took a deep dive on understanding why everybody did certain things, how to cut deals, how to talk to people, how to develop my personality, my on the phone personality, my in-person personality. I'm a middle child, right? Like I like to please other people and get that gratification back. And I think that's sort of what's helped me grow in this industry. And then it's just, you take one step and that leads to a bigger step and that leads to a bigger step and that leads to a bigger step. And as long as you keep taking advantage of those steps that are available to you, sort of sky's the limit. I mean, there's really no there's really no ceiling as an agent because you're as big as your biggest band, right? So if you got a big band, you can get one bigger than that. And if you got a bigger band, then you can get another bigger band, and so on and so forth. And you start developing bands and, finding what you like and aligning that band with other people that are like-minded to you and, how to build a team. And there's so much more than just like picking up the phone and like wheeling and dealing deals. It's a lot of, I like this. I think this is going to, I think this genre, this band can do this number in this many years if I have these people behind it. It's a fun game to play. It's a lot of, as much gambling as a promoter, but you're gambling with your time in the sense of trying to develop acts.
Yeah, it's always been interesting to me because like there's a lot of thought that goes into what the right opening act might be for a gig or what festival to go to. Yeah. It surprised me just over the years learning how much you guys actually do say no because it's not the right thing. Yeah. There was an instance where we were doing a festival in Atlanta. I can't remember what it was, but it was like in April or something like that. So there was a storm that came through and they ended up like canceling our set, but they offered for us to go the next day or something like that. I was like, oh, of course, we had a day off or whatever. We'll just do the show again. And there was a lot of back and forth about whether or not they should actually do the gig. And the final decision was made to not do it because they would still get paid because it's force majeure weather issue or whatever. You still get paid for the gig. And they thought if they just moved it to the next day, they wouldn't get booked again the next year. And the next year they did get booked and they got like 3 or 4 times as much money. But, it's just like, it's things like that you don't really think about as a tour manager, that really, there's a lot that goes into that kind of stuff.
Right. So you said a really interesting word, force majeure, which has come up. I mean, I think it's really important for people to know because that term has been thrown around a lot. So that force majeure clause in our contracts basically state, act of God, hurricane, earthquake, pandemic, all those things fall under force majeure. Now, in your case, when it downpoured and the artist couldn't go on stage because it's fucking downpouring, that's actually not considered force majeure because in our contracts, we always protect an artist. For any outdoor events, artists is to be paid ready to shine if they are ready, willing, and able to play. So if that artist is standing side stage, ready to go on stage, but it's downpouring and it downpours all day and they can't get up there, they're still liable to get paid. That's why promoters get insurance. Force majeure is something that nobody can do anything about. You can't get there. It's not safe for people. National emergency. All that stuff falls under that. That's what we're dealing with right now with this with COVID-19 and these shows. Literally, it cannot happen. The artist cannot get there. The promoter cannot make it happen. In that case, everybody gets refunded. Fans get refunded. The artist doesn't get paid.
Okay.
In that sense. Like hypothetically, God forbid, let's say we're on Sebastian Bach for our fall tour, and let's say there's a spike and an outbreak in one of the cities we're supposed to go to. We don't get paid for that because it is part of a pandemic. Ongoing cause falls under the force majeure. But if we were there and, like, for example, on a previous tour where the lights went out, not our fault. We're there ready, willing, and able to play.
Yeah.
A state of emergency has to be declared by a local government for it to fall under a force majeure. Think of it like that.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm sure you're dealing with that quite a bit right now. So what's the story? I mean, you kind of got a little bit into APA, how you got the gig there, but what's the story of how you kind of moved up through the ranks?
So I started as an assistant. A lot of people don't go straight in as an assistant. There is a way to get to where you want to go, but if you have no experience, you generally start at that mailroom position. I think we call it our agent trainee program for APA, and it's different. Again, it's different for every other agency. But APA, you start in the mailroom where you're delivering mail, you're wearing a suit and tie every day, you're delivering, you're covering desks, so you're getting an idea of what the music department is like, what the comedy touring department's like, what the literary department's like, physical production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then as desks open up, you're sort of one of the first people in line to interview for those desks. In concerts, it's a lot about personality because you're out in public a lot more than the other assistants. Mm-hmm. You're covering shows 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week, and the agents really need to sort of drive with their assistant. Craig and I are still friends. I mean, he officiated our wedding. I assisted him for 3.5 years. We sort of know each other really well, and it just naturally fit. He sort of gave me a lot of pointers, a lot of information about how he did stuff, and sort of like from that whole experience, I sort of like figured out my little code of ethics, what I do as an agent, and how I present myself, and ultimately things I won't do. Mm-hmm. I get everybody to pay their bills, but there's some things that are more important than money. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, especially people in the business who have been around for a while, there's a lot of people who really understand that, and I feel like some people find out the hard way that I think reputation is more important than money.
That's interesting because you're kind of like in between. Ultimately you work for the artist, but you have to play that game where you have to develop relationships with promoters, and we've both been in that situation where it kind of gets hairy. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, there's we're probably both thinking about that one time.
Yeah, no, it just popped in my head, and we're not going to name names.
No, we won't name names, but we'll just say these. I'll say this. Well, there's probably 2 things we're thinking of. Like there's I won't go into it, but
yeah,
but you get in that position where in a specific situation, a promoter's not living up to their end of the bargain. How do you navigate that?
It's hard to navigate because your ultimate number one priority is the artist. Mm. That's what you're taught day one at any agency that you go to. You don't work for the promoter, you work for the artist.
Yeah.
But at the same time, without those promoters and without those relationships, how am I supposed to get my other band to this festival or this event or this casino or this whatever it is? How do you navigate that? And that is not. I don't think that's a black and white answer. There's no black and white answer. I think it's you've got to. That's sort of when your personality comes into play and how you talk to that promoter and what your relationship is like with that promoter. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'll fucking burn a city down for one of my artists.
I've seen you do it.
Yeah, I've done it before. I'll do it. I'm sure I'll do it again. I brought baseball bats to shows.
Yeah. But I think you'd probably agree the legitimate promoters out there are 99% of the time, up and do the right thing. You do got to understand that all the risk is in their hands. I mean, if they commit to a guarantee, if 2 people show up to that show, that artist is walking with their guarantee, and they're going to lose their ass. Yeah, it's just an interesting thing.
Yeah, and there are times when I'll go to bat for a promoter and go to management and really just break down the conversation and break down what's actually happening, so they don't see it as like a money grab. In a lot of those situations, Bach is a little bit different because he's been around for a while, but some of these other bands I work with are still developing. And these managers need to understand you don't want to just go out there and burn a shit ton of markets or burn promoters left and right, because that's how you get a bad rep. That's how you don't get invited back to places. That's how you really just destroy your name out there. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a fine line of, what is the right thing is you sign a contract, the artist should get paid this. But on the flip side is, well, we do this promoter is going to go out of business. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember one of the first shows that I ever cut at APA. I'll never forget it because it was the most horrible experience of my life. It was a first-year festival, and rule number 1 of dealing with the first-year festival is get the money in before they announce. So I had the money in for 5 artists.
So that's so the artist doesn't look like the asshole when they say, "Hey, never mind, we're not doing it."
Well, it's to protect the artist, right?
Yeah,
if this promoter, if it fails, the artist still gets paid. Mm-hmm. They're not showing up there and collecting half of the check or whatever.
Well, then they announce, and then the artist says, "Oh, never mind, we're not doing it." It doesn't look good for the artist.
Yeah, also that too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this festival ended up going under, and this guy's like, "Is there any way I can get any of my money back?" And I told him no. And the guy cried on the phone for probably 30 minutes over this whole mess. He basically got disowned from his family, from his brothers and so on and so forth, because they had like a construction company, and which always is a red flag. And his wife left him and took her kids, kicked him out of the house. He went in massive amounts of debt, and he was basically like casted out of that community for causing such a stir. But like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, he signed a contract, he gave me the money, I did my job, but is it the right thing to do? Like, you know, completely ruining somebody's life. But I didn't ruin his life. You know, I didn't do that. But it's a hard pill to swallow. You know,
because you feel for those. That I would say every year I'm in a situation like that, if not twice a year, where there's somebody that just has money that just like, I'm going to book these bands and all these people are going to show up. And it's not that simple, you know. It's just, there's so much more to it than
booking the bands is the easiest part.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and you know, there's a show we did where I think that's exactly what happened. They put Sebastian in this hockey arena and nobody showed up. I mean, it was.
The papers will say tons of people showed up.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely not.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game to play as a promoter. And in that same breath, right? Like, one of the things that I was taught is to give everybody an equal chance. So when you've got this band that everybody wants, give them a shot. You know, I think any promoter that's listening to this and has talked to me or has ever emailed me knows that I get back to everybody. If you're interested in one of my bands, I'll respond, whether or not you like that response or not. But I ask a bunch of questions because you're not the first person to reach out to me that's never done a show before, you know, or has only done a couple shows, or have never done any shows with you. So yeah, I'm gonna put you through the ringer and make sure that when my band gets there, they know exactly what they're getting into.
Mm-hmm. You've warned me in the past, like, man, this might be a little bit hairy. Be ready for it, and it's good to know that because you're looking for the red flags, and you can be a little more proactive about things. You know, if you're looking to do something like that, my advice is, if you want to be the money behind it and you want to learn how to do it, hire a reputable talent buyer that knows the ropes and let them teach you.
And has a relationship with the agent.
Yeah, and well, yeah, exactly. You know, a lot of times, you know, you do that 2-3 years and you still keep that relationship with that talent buyer, but you kind of cut loose a little bit more. And that happens a lot in venues too. There's a lot of times a middle buyer that's got the relationship with the agent, but you know, you do all the settling and all the advancing with the club, not always directly involved with they're involved, but they're not owned by the same person. But
they're not involved in the negotiation, and that's like an important thing too, because a lot of agents out there will take somebody who they've never talked to or somebody that's green, and they'll run through the ringer and get every dollar out of them for their band because they have no idea what the fuck they're doing. You know, they don't know how to research what that band's worth is in that market, how many times they played there recently, have they ever played there before. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, everybody knows this band because everybody that I talk to knows this band.
Yeah.
Well, no, you talk to your friends who know that band because you all have similar tastes. That's why they're your fucking friends.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, they don't do the research outside of the circle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's important.
And that's like a really important thing.
A reputable buyer will book a band that they don't know anything about, but they know will sell well, or they're not even particularly interested in. I mean, and that happens all the time.
Because they've done the research, and
exactly.
They've done the research, and they have marketers who do the research with them. And
so, when you're booking a tour, how do you start? I mean, I know you guys usually find like anchor dates, like festivals and big paying things, and then kind of build stuff around that. But like after that part of it, what's the process of you know? I mean, a lot of times people think you guys just throw a dartboard at a map, but that's almost never the case. There's a couple times where I'm like, Ben, what the hell are you thinking? But you know, you got to do what you got to do. But
not me. I have a rhyme and reason to everything. So my method is the same method for big bands or small bands. Is the first question is, what are we doing this for, and who are we doing this for? So. And I mean, we can take Sebastian, for example, 30th anniversary of the first Skid Row album. That's a great reason to go and tour.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we want to hit? Well, it doesn't fucking matter where we hit because we played fucking everywhere last time. So let's at least go and start with major markets. The first, but I will say the Bach one's is a little bit of a weird one because we actually built that tour not knowing that we were going to do the anniversary of Skid Row. Actually, Baz made that decision, like, I think a month before we announced it, and then we changed a bunch of stuff.
Well, because he was talking about doing another album, and and then when that got announced, I mean, I found out about it, I think, when everybody else found out about it, and then people just went nuts. But yeah,
people love, and especially in the past 4 or 5 years, people love the nostalgia shit. I mean, that's why you see so many anniversary tours, because promoters are offering more money for anniversary stuff. Mm-hmm. So of course everybody's going to want to do it. And to get back to my whole process, what's the reason behind this? Okay, well, if we need money, then we should just stick to major markets. Or if it's, we're still working on the same album, well, let's do secondary. Mm-hmm. Figuring out why we're going out on tour and then building off that. So, okay, so we're new album, we're going to go hit major markets, we're going to go play for 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is. In my mind, I know how many days a row all of my bands can do, how many days off they need. And then I take that, I basically take where all the gear is at or where they're living. Bach lives in LA. 9 out of 10 times his tours will start in Los Angeles or somewhere on the West Coast. And then I just sort of build off that. Like, I always try and keep my bands most 150 to 300 miles a night with a drive, off days, up to 600 or 700 miles. Make it as easy for the artist, because if it's easy for the artist, I don't get phone calls, right? I mean, my least favorite part of this job is when I'm going to bed at 11 o'clock at night and my phone rings half an hour after I lay down. On the other end of that line is someone who has a problem at settlement and is out there, because all my other tour managers know that your last resort is calling me. If you have tried everything, and the last resort is calling me. Not the manager, not anybody else, it's me. So I know that I'm the last.
I'll call Ernie before I call you if I'm having a problem, and then Ernie will usually be like, "I'm sleeping, call Ben."
Yeah. And he's fucking 2 hours behind me.
No, I'm kidding. I'll be honest with you. Usually I'll reach out to him first, but he's probably doing the same thing you're doing. Just.
Yeah, he's got kids though. I don't. Which I also.
Leave me alone, but then at least you guys can't say I didn't try to get in touch with you.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people know this, but I think a lot of people misunderstand how old I am, especially with when I'm dealing with Sebastian and stuff. I'm 30. I am as old as that first album. Sorry, I'm 31. I'm as old as that first album.
To be honest with you, man, because I mean, we did a whole tour before I ever even met you, and I had no idea until I met you that you were younger than me. You're an old soul.
Compared to him. But I fucking love 80s music. It's funny, actually, on that rock boat, I told people I was his age and they didn't fucking believe me at all. None. I don't think one person believed me. So then, going back to my way of doing things, why are we doing it? Where are we going? How many shows they can do in a row? What's the most they can drive? What are they in? Whatever they're in sort of determines on how far they can make those drives. There's also like legal implications. A bus driver can only drive, anybody with a CDL license can only drive a max of 500 miles. So that comes into consideration. Drives over that, it's an overdrive. You need to hire another driver. Once I get, management approves my routing, I start getting offers. My first attack is to people who have done it before, especially people who have done shows and really won. And then from there, I'll start hitting up the other promoters in those markets, and I'll hold, 2 days on either side of my target days. So in case I need to shift dates around or whatever, I'll hold multiple dates. So I'll hold five days per market. And then I'll start getting offers. And, a lot of cases, it's most money wins. In some cases, it's what's the better room. Like there are certain rooms I know where Sebastian does better than others, just as I know with like Plain White T's, they do better in some than others. And even my small bands, I know, what's the punk rock room, what's the rock room, what's the folky room or whatever. And then from there, you start diving in a little bit deeper and you start looking at the ticketing fees. Well, okay, I know that Sebastian fans are going to pay this amount of money for a ticket, but they're not going to spend this much money on a ticket. With the ticketing fees and the processing fees, they're actually going to be spending over the amount of money that they actually want to pay for that ticket. Well, how do I lower that gap? How do if it's $30 to buy a ticket and it's $45 out the door, how do I get that number closer to $30? Well, that's the ticketing fee. So, rule of thumb is in a room that's more than 1,000 cap, you can usually negotiate that ticketing fee down, because a lot of people don't realize that ticketing fee is a profit for the promoter. So I negotiate that down as low as I can. And in some cases, I'll lower that ticketing fee a little bit, and maybe I'll bump the ticket $1 or $2. So I get to see more money going to the gross. And then from there, I figure out what the best deal is, whether it's a versus deal or, is the promoter going to, this promoter only offers me promoter profit because he doesn't own any rooms. He doesn't get a piece of the bar. Am I going to do, versus deals? What am I going to do? And then I start breaking down merch rates. I start breaking down expenses. I start negotiating. Well, like you've got a house nut of $2,000, but you've also broken out security. You've also broken out, front of house staff. Well, why don't you just get rid of that and include it in your house nut? And that way, just breaking out little $100 expenses just doesn't mean anything. Let's just cut that. I'll give you this if you do that. And yeah, it's all about how do I make the most amount of money in a sellout scenario for the artist, because I'm paid off of what the artist makes at the end of the night. So I want them to make the most amount of money. And then, from there, it's contract all the dates, send contracts out, collect deposits. Hopefully everything sells really well. And then we do the post-show accounting and on to the next one. So it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of phone calls, it's a lot of emails. I do that for all of my bands. Plus I do, I help out as a territorial over at APA. So I help out on other people's bands too. As I'm saying it, you can sort of start to understand how redundant a booking agent's job can be. And going back to what I first said, in that it's important to expand your roster, I think, in a lot of senses, in that it's a way to help keep things fresh and keep you thinking on your feet and talking to new people, because, I love my Live Nation guys, but sometimes I want to talk to somebody else, and there's a lot of people out there that want to do shows.
Yeah, and the Live Nation thing, they're valuable in their own right, but there's a lot of really good smaller promoters out there that do just as good of a job.
Yeah. You just you need to watch out for some of them, but yeah, Live Nation, the check's in clear.
So what advice do you have for people that are looking to maybe go into the management route, maybe be a booking agent someday? What's what things do they need to pursue, and what positions do they need to put themselves in to do well?
So that's a great question. I've done a bunch of panels over the years. I've done NAMM, and I've spoken at UCLA over the years. I get asked this question a lot. So I tell people that there's a wonderful book that is basically the Bible of this industry, Everything You Need to Know About the Music Industry, by Donald Passman. It's a super easy read. He explains all of the different areas of our business and breaks down sort of like the main points you need to know about all this. And starting to read that is sort of like a great intro. But I would also say, just get involved. No one is going to come to you and be like, oh, do you want this great gig being an A&R rep at Universal? Or no one's going to offer you your dream job in the music industry. No one. In order to get to your dream job, you're probably going to have to do a bunch of other jobs. Like an A&R rep really knows artists. They know the label side of things. They know the agent side of things. They know the management side of things. So those A&R guys generally have experience in all of those fields. And A&R is a lifelong gig. Those guys who do A&R are in those positions 30, 40 years. But if you're in school, walk down to your local club and be like, hey, who's your talent buyer? Don't use the word booker because it makes you sound like a fucking noob. Who's your talent buyer? Yeah. And then get that person's contact and ask them, to do like a mentorship. Are you able to tag along with some shows and see how they're doing deals and how they're settling shows? If you're going to shows a lot, make sure you at some point introduce yourself to the door guy. Be like, my name is blah blah blah. I've been here every day the past week and I keep seeing you. I just want to introduce myself. Those guys are your friends, because they're going to be the ones that are not going to kick you out at the end of the night when you're just trying to talk to the band or you're trying to talk to the buyer who's about to walk into settlement. Make yourself known. If you're managing, everybody knows somebody in the music business, or, everybody knows a musician. And I guarantee you, we all know musicians that's not managed. Read some books, read some articles, approach that person, tell them you have no fucking idea what you're doing, but you'd like to help them with their career in some aspect. If they say yes, then help them with their career. Don't sign anything. Just work. Just try and do some stuff. you want to get spun on the local radio station. Well, let me make some calls and see if I can figure out how to do that. And then go to the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing.
Punk rock education.
Yeah, exactly. The punk rock education.
Well, I know a ton of people that got started in this business just because they begged a band to let them sell merch for them or drive their van or something like that.
Right, exactly.
It all builds on itself. You start from the bottom and move on up.
Right, exactly. And just immersing yourself with the industry as a whole is just I think the best way to. I mean, that's what I did, right? Like, I just immersed myself. I had no fucking idea what I was doing, but I was like, I'm going to try this because I think this would be a lot of fun. And I didn't see any sort of return until I got an assistant gig where I was making some sort of steady salary. I don't think at any point between high school and then was I like, man, I just made a shit ton of money for myself. Never. I didn't have one of those coming to God moments where like I was like, oh, I can do this as a full-time job. But that's just me, like there are plenty of people who started as a local promoter and are now very successful local promoters. But it is a gamble. Promoter, you're not, that's your money. You need to have all that money, regardless of how ticket sales do. You need to be prepared to pay that band all of their guarantee.
And that's why I'm, as a tour manager, I'm gonna do this video that I was telling you about how to settle a show. But you do got to kind of skirt the line because they're footing the whole bill, And if you get into points, that's good for both of you. But if you don't get into points, it's
and if you as a tour manager say, okay, well, we'll give you $500 back, you ain't just affecting the artist. You're affecting my pay. You're affecting the manager's pay. You're affecting everybody at that point. You are the front line of defense as a tour manager out there. And props to you, man. I could never fucking do that. I can't do that.
Well, I mean, but that's as a tour manager, and don't do this unless you are told to or what you're doing. But like Andrew Ellis, who we both know, he's an APA agent. We did a tour and it wasn't selling well, and it was just because it was like the wrong time. I don't really know why, but it wasn't selling well. And he goes to me and he's like, listen, these guys are losing their ass. Anything you can do to get their expenses down, do it. If we don't need 20 security guys, let's figure out how to make it on 10 or 5 or whatever. And, if we don't need all these stagehands, there's a lot you can do. And then that's going to look good for you and your artist next time around because, it's just, it's a friends game, if, and then on the same token, I'm not scared at all to getting a promoter's girl that I know is ripping me off. So,
yeah. And you can obviously there are some scenarios where you can obviously tell that a promoter's ripping you off because he says there was 20 security guys, but you saw 3 that entire night. Yeah. I think you even walked around with a camera or something like that and taking pictures and stuff, and then said, "There's no fucking way we're paying for this." And it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no way you're paying for that.
Yeah. But the good promoter, and I mean, technically, you can. If you read the contracts or if you read the deal memos, they always say approved and documented expenses. So technically, they should have documentation for all that stuff. But if they're losing their ass, you don't worry about that. And if you see them bringing their costs down that don't really affect you, you can usually trust them in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I tell you every time I know there's something, I can sense something greasy happening, I always tell you to tell the promoter to prepare all the receipts. Don't leave until you see the last one. Get the ad pack.
Well, and I'm,
just show you where all the ad money
that's
went.
a big one. That's a big one. Like if a show's not selling well, I'm not going to bug them for the ad pack, but we had shows on that Bach tour sell out in like a couple days. And I didn't even really think about that, but you told me, listen, they're if it sells out that fast, they're not spending all that ad money because there's no sense, putting out ads for a show that's already sold out. But but make friends, and if they're not screwing you over, you can usually trust them most of the time. But
yeah, assume everybody's good until proven guilty.
Yes. Exactly. And exactly. Well, Ben, thank you so much, dude. Really appreciate you giving me a call and talking to me today.
No worries. Thank you for having me. And yeah, for everybody listening, make sure to check out all of my bands. And if you're looking for a great tour manager, I can absolutely vouch for Ryan, as long as he's not busy with any of my bands.
Any of his bands.
Yeah.
Hey, but cool, dude. Yeah. So, and we're gonna be hitting the road again in October, no matter what. So, everybody buy tickets for that that Sebastian Bach tour. All right, dude. I will catch you later. When all this is done, we'll grab a beer.
Sounds good, my friend. You take it easy, stay safe, and stay healthy out there.
All right, dude. Catch you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Bus Call. If you like the podcast, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit us at patreon.com/buscall. Patreon members will get the podcast a week before it's released to the public, and they can also sign up to have advance notice of who's going to be on and the opportunity to ask questions. Please take some time to visit show-logistics.com. We've dedicated the first page to sell merch to raise money for Crew Nation's Global Relief Fund. As you know, with COVID-19, basically all touring has stopped for the foreseeable future, and there's thousands and thousands of crew out of work, and we're donating all the profits, many of the merch sold there, straight to Crew Nation. Thanks so much again, and please rate, review, and subscribe.